Hi everybody, this is Ro coming to you from Myrtle Avenue Studio, wanting to give you some background on the tracks for the Tears and Smiles album. And the first track, track number 1 on the album, is called It's One of Those Nights, and then in parentheses they call it Yes Love. So it's kind of a long title. Sometimes I just call it Yes Love just because it's a little bit shorter. But it's called It's One of Those Nights, Yes Love. And so one of the questions that always pops up is, why that song? And why is that track number 1? So I thought I'd give you a background on it. Some of you know, not all of you, but some of you know that particular song was made famous by David Cassidy when he was part of the TV show The Partridge Family. And so that's what first attracted me to that particular song. If you didn't know, you're going to find out now that Ro was a big Partridge Family fan, especially when he was a kid. He'd come home from school, and that was one of the shows that I liked to watch. I was especially a big fan of Lori Partridge, right? Because she was so cute. So I grew up kind of listening to those songs, and because they're kind of near and dear to me, it just seemed kind of logical that I would choose that particular song as one of the title tracks. There's some other reasons. Obviously the Partridge Family sung a lot of different songs, and so why that particular one? Well, again, there's some history behind it. Some of you know, maybe if you read my bio, that one of the ways that I kind of came into this music thing is kind of by accident. I bought the whole DVD set for the Partridge Family because I just enjoyed watching it, just because it was kind of something that reminded me of when I was a kid. And in the process of watching that particular show, I got to know the show and the episodes and the songs so well that I could kind of sing along to them no matter where I was at in my house. And so oftentimes that DVD set is something that I would put on, for example, if I was cleaning house. And so you can kind of imagine Ro, wandering around the house, cleaning house, and at the same time, whenever the songs would come on, I would sing along. And so eventually it got to the point that because I was singing along with those songs so much that I started to know them really well by heart. And in my mind, as I was kind of listening to myself, kind of singing, neighbors are probably wondering what's going on. I started to think to myself, I said, it sounds like I'm doing a pretty good job singing these songs. I wasn't sure. Everybody thinks that they can sing a little bit, and so I was no exception. And so I decided to get some confirmation. And so what I decided to do, and it was a secret, I made sure I didn't tell anybody, I decided to go and visit some local vocal coaches. I thought to myself, I'm going to take my little karaoke machine that I had purchased, and I'm going to go off and see a vocal coach to see what they think about my singing, just kind of for funsies. And so in order to do that, I needed a way to actually sing the songs, and so I got online and I actually found a karaoke CD of nothing but Partridge Family songs and music. And I said, okay, that'll work for me. So I ordered that and they sent it to me, and then I bought one of those little karaoke machines that has the 2 mics on it, and obviously I just needed the 1 mic. And so I started kind of practicing in my house, secretly, until I got to the point where I felt pretty comfortable, and that's when I started visiting these vocal coaches. And so I actually went to 3. The first 2 that I went to it was kind of interesting. The first lady that I went and visited, she was a classical vocal type of coach. And so when I mentioned to her what kind of songs I like singing, I don't think she was real enthusiastic, real impressed, being a vocal coach. And so I sang for her, and she thought I did really well. In fact, one of the things that she did that was a little bit surprising to me is, in lieu of just singing songs only, she made me do what she called scales, where she kind of hit the piano keys, and the piano keys kind of went up, and she said, I just want you to kind of match your voice with the keys, kind of that kind of a thing, And so I did that for her, and I remember as we started going up on the keys of the piano that she had, started getting higher and higher and higher and higher, and And me not really knowing what I was doing, I just kind of followed along with what the keys are, and eventually we got really far down to the other end, and she kind of stopped, and she had this kind of surprised look on her face, and she goes, wow, you have a really big range in terms of your voice, which I didn't know one way or the other. And I said, oh, okay. And I remember her saying, yeah, you dropped into falsetto so easily. I didn't know what falsetto was then, and I kind of don't even know what it is now, but it's that point along the way where your voice kind of has to change in order to hit kind of a high note. And apparently I kind of just did that without really thinking about it, and so she was excited. But again, she wanted me to do classical music, and that just wasn't something that got me very excited. And so I did, I think, spend 2 lessons with her just for kind of funsies sake, and after the 2 lessons just decided that that wasn't for me. So then I went and visited another vocal coach in another town nearby, and she was a little bit more enthusiastic, but just the environment, you know, she worked out of her home, which is fine, kind of off to the side in one of the spare rooms, and her husband's there and her kids are there, kind of a thing, and she was very nice. And her comment to me that I thought was kind of interesting was when I started singing the little karaoke Partridge Family songs, her reaction was, she said, she goes, oh, she says, you sound like you should be on the radio, you know, but you don't believe them when they say these things, because, you know, you just assume that they're going to say nice things so that you'll want to take lessons, so they can take, you know, they can make a little money and stuff. So on the one hand, it was kind of nice to hear somebody say that, but on the other hand, you're kind of a little bit unsure as to kind of why they would want to, you know, say that kind of thing. Maybe they're kind of fibbing a little bit to kind of, you know, lure you in, so to speak. So again, I didn't feel 100% comfortable with her either, and so I decided to go to a different vocal coach. And so this next one that I went to was an actual school, the Visalia Music School, and it's an actual business. Not to say that the other 2 weren't, but they were kind of a one-man show, or in this case, one-woman show. Both of them were like one-woman shows, whereas this was an actual school where people would come not only to do vocal lessons, but to learn how to play the piano and different instruments as well. And I remember calling them up on the phone, and they always ask you what kind of, you know, music you like to do. And I was always a little bit apprehensive because the other 2 didn't seem real enthusiastic. You know, when you tell somebody you like doing, you know, Partridge Family music, you know, you get kind of weird looks on people's faces. And so when I called them up and told them what kind of music I liked, you know, the lady on the phone, she responded in kind of a positive way. Her comment was, oh, I think I have the perfect guy for you in terms of a vocal coach. So I said, oh, okay. And so she made me an appointment with this vocal coach, and I drove over there to meet the guy. And I remember walking in and seeing him, and he was about my age, in his early 50s, which made it a little bit easier. And really laid back, really mellow kind of guy. And he asked me, you know, who I was, and I introduced myself. And then he asked me that question again. He said, well, what kind of music do you like to do? And I told him Partridge Family music, and his reaction was totally positive. His eyes kind of lit up, and he kind of smiled, and he goes, oh, because that sounds like a lot of fun. And so from the very beginning, I got a really good vibe from this particular individual. His name is and was Steve Zimmer. And supposedly Steve Zimmer, I've since learned, is kind of a big deal in our area just in terms of piano and vocals. And so I sung a few songs, Partridge Family songs for him, and he suggested that maybe we start working together on these particular songs. And I said, oh, that sounds like a good idea. And in that very first lesson, he kind of freaked me out a little bit, because before I went home, one of the first things that he told me is he said that you know, based on what he was hearing and the songs that I was singing, his comment was, you need to start performing, which kind of struck me as kind of odd, since I had never sang in front of anybody, and I'd never performed in my life. And he kept reiterating over and over, because you need to start performing right now. And so I was a little bit apprehensive, and he said, okay. He says, I tell you what, he says, I can tell you're a little bit apprehensive about performing, so what I would like you to do in lieu of performing, he says, I'd like you to go and find some open mics. That's where you just kind of show up and get to sing at different, you know, little venues. He says, you don't even have to sing. I just want you to go and check it out. So I said, okay, I promise you by the next time I see you, I will have visited at least one open mic event, just as a spectator. And so that's what I did. I went and checked out an open mic and came back, and he said, so how'd it go? What did you discover at this open mic? And the open mics are kind of interesting, but I can see why he kind of sent me. I remember thinking to myself, watching the people perform, that I thought, I can do what they're doing. And in a lot of cases, based on kind of what I was seeing, if you've been to an open mic, you get the whole gamut of talent, from people who are not very good at all to people who are really outstanding to kind of everything kind of in between. And so I left there thinking to myself, I think I could do that, and in some cases maybe even better than a lot of the people that I saw. And so he chimed in there and indicated to me, that's why I wanted you to go, is I wanted you to see that you were at that level where you could start performing now if you wanted to. And so that's what I started doing. He had me performing. I was performing probably, almost every week for about 4 to 6 months. His goal was to get the fear out of me, the fear factor of standing up in front of people and singing. And the very first place that I went to actually sing in front of people was a local place here in Visalia called the Lunchbox. And I remember showing up there, and they have their little sign-up sheet, and I remember signing my name on it. I had chosen two songs. He made sure, he told me, he said, choose your 2 Partridge Family songs that you know by heart, the ones that you can sing them without even thinking. And so I had 2 that I had selected, and the music I had on my phone. They call it a backing track. And so I showed up there, and I saw the list, and I signed up for the list and kind of sat down in the back. And little by little they're calling people up to perform, kind of one at a time. And as they got closer and closer to my name, holy smokes was I nervous. I was so nervous. I remember it was almost like my hands were all clammy. My hands were kind of shaking a little bit, and I remember thinking to myself, what are you doing? It's like, are you really gonna stand up there in front of these people and sing in front of people? Are you really gonna do that? And I was getting really nervous, and all of a sudden I hear them call my name. They say Roe. I was like, oh my gosh. And I remember standing up, walking towards the front, and again in my mind I was like, what are you doing? Are you sure you're gonna do this? What are you doing? Scared out of my mind. And I walked up there. I walked over to the guy in charge of the music and handed him my little iPhone and showed him where my songs were. He plugged them in and stuff, and there's the mic stand there with a mic, and he says, are you ready? And I said, yes. And so he hit the button, and the song started playing. And the song that I chose for my first song was this particular song. That's the first song on the debut album. It's One of Those Nights, Yes Love. And so the music started, and the next thing you know, all of a sudden, because I just knew it so well and I practiced it so well or so much, all of a sudden I just started singing it. And once I got going, I kind of lost myself in the song, which is a good thing. And then all of a sudden the song was over. It seems like it's this fast when you're up there. All of a sudden the song was over, and I remember taking a little bow, and then it freaked me out because all these people started clapping. And I was like, oh shoot, I guess I didn't bomb after all. And so then I remember saying kind of out loud again, because I was so nervous, I remember saying, should I do another? And they're all, yay, do another, do another, do another. So I was like, oh my gosh, I guess I'm doing okay. And so I went ahead and did a second Partridge Family song, one right after the other, and got a really, really good response on that too. And again, it felt like it just happened in an instant. I took the bow, I got some really good applause, and then I took my phone and walked away, and that was it. That was my first little, open mic singing in front of people, a little show, so to speak. And so that's why this particular song is on there. It's near and dear to me for lots of different reasons. I'm a Partridge Family fan, I'm a big David Cassidy fan. I always thought Lori Partridge was a little cutie. It's the first song I ever sung live in front of people. And so for all those reasons, and probably others that I'm not thinking of right now, I decided that's going to be the first song on the album. I also think it's a good song just in terms of, if you'd never heard me before, it's kind of like, Ro, what's this Ro guy like? What's his music like? What does he sound like? I also thought it was a good introduction into kind of, what kind of music I do, and give you a real quick notion as to whether or not you're going to like the genre in terms of the kind of songs that I like to sing. And I think that's kind of it. I don't know, Doug, did I leave anything out in terms of that's one of those night songs, or is that pretty much the extent of it?
I think you nailed it.
I think I nailed it. I think that's kind of it, kind of in a nutshell. So that story is probably going to be the longest story of all the tracks, just because there's a lot more reasons for singing that particular one than some of the other ones. The reasons for some of the other ones are going to be much shorter, but that one is near and dear to me. So there you go. It's one of those nights. Yes, love. Behind the Tears and Smiles. That's why it's track number 1. So next time I see you, we'll talk about track number 2. Thanks.